Yeah, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, similar to Henderson. But his Chinese is better than me.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh yes, he can write Chinese. Okay, here we go.
Oh, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I'm a banana, so I'm white on the inside and yellow on the outside.
So you didn't grow up speaking Chinese then? No.
Up to yeah, as a young teenager.
Oh, I'm sure your Chinese is
Okay, so hello everyone. We're just gonna wait. People will start dripping in, but I'm gonna just start to warm up and welcome and introduce you, William, formally. Um, okay, so welcome. Hello everyone. I know you'll be coming in. This is recorded and you can always watch the replay. Um, we welcome you to happy, healthy, wealthy, worthy, and wise. Our aim is to help people realize their full potential and reach a higher level of fulfillment and consciousness using the teachings of the 10 sacred qualities by Dr. and Master Jigong Sha. And the 10 greatest qualities, what are they, Henderson?
Yes, of course, they are the greatest love, greatest forgiveness, greatest compassion, greatest light, greatest humility, greatest service, greatest harmony, greatest flourishing, greatest gratitude, and greatest enlightenment.
Well done, you've passed the test, Henderson.
Very, very excited today to have William Gladstone with us. He is a well-known author, anthropologist, like The Power of 12, and many other books that are beyond amazing.
Yes, let's give Mr. William Gladstone, a big hand for joining us. We are so honored and happy. So, William is the founder of Waterside Productions, one of the most successful literary agencies in the world, a best-selling author of Tapping the Source, The Golden Motorcycle, The Power of 12, and so many more books. And he is a publisher, an agent, literary agent, and filmmaker with 2 degrees. I mean, 2 degrees from Yale University and Harvard University. And he represents a whole bunch of inspiring teachers and authors, such as Deepa Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, Neil Donald Walsh, Dr. Irvin Laszlo, and many other outstanding authors and professionals dedicated to inspiring and improving the world. And we love your mission, William. Really, really amazing.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much. And I do just want to comment that I've just recently updated Master Shah's autobiography. I call it autobiography. I'm the author, so it's not an autobiography, but he worked very closely with me. So it's the closest, because he's never going to write it himself. So it's the closest we're ever going to have to an autobiography. And I was able to add all the new information around Dao song, Dao dance, even I think is mentioned, but Love, Peace, Harmony Foundation, all the recent Tapping the Source summits. I'll talk a little bit more about Tapping the Source, which is really related to abundance and the purpose of this Facebook. And so I really recommend, if you haven't had a chance, or even if you did 10 years ago or more when the first edition came out, get the new edition. It includes all the interviews with Henderson and everyone else, all the master teachers. But this new edition has information. It includes the new foreword from Queen Diambi, and it really updates and shows why Master Shah is no longer, the first edition said exploring a mystery. This one says documenting a legend, because given the recent activities and the tremendous following that Master Shah is creating on Instagram and everywhere else, it's just a matter of time before he steps into the legendary status of other people like Edgar Cayce, Napoleon Hill, the people that have really inspired so many millions. So I just want to draw some attention to that.
Great. Thank you so much, Bill. So we've got some questions for you tonight. And the first one is, what prompted you to write a book about Dr. Master Sha?
Well, I've represented so many healers and they're wonderful, but I've never represented a healer who is able to transfer his healing ability to others. So that's what really intrigued me and got me started with the first book. And while I was doing that research, I was able to document, because I have degrees, from Harvard and Yale, and I have articles published in the Yale Scientific. I have a scientific approach to things. It's not just, oh, somebody tells me a story, isn't that wonderful? No, let's research and find out, well, we know about the placebo effect. Maybe there's an explanation other than just Master Sha has all these abilities. Well, guess what? Master Sha has these abilities. They're real. I documented it. I spoke with dozens of people, many of whom had been told they had limited time left on this planet. They had 4th stage cancer. And through Master Sha's healing, they were healed. And then I talked with people like Henderson, who had clients of his own who had had cancers, and they were healed. So I was able to double document that Master Sha was effective in his own healings, but that he was also effective in giving others the ability to heal as well. So this really intrigued me, and I felt it was absolutely essential that we have a book documenting Master Sha, because, as you know, there are many healers that have existed throughout history. Edgar Cayce is probably the best known, but then there's others who are, sometimes effective, but we're not exactly certain. John of God, I think, was one of them. He did have some successes, but he also had some unfortunate incidents that may indicate that he was less than pure in his abilities. So with Master Sha, I haven't found any evidence of anything but purity, and that he truly is dedicated to serving humanity. And so I really wanted to create a book that would be a lasting legacy for documenting Master Sha's abilities and the good works that he's been doing for decades now.
Mm-hmm. So how did you find Master Sha?
Well, I had a call from Rick Fishman, who was doing PR for many authors like Jack Canfield, who had been doing some PR for Master Sha's early books. And so he said, I have this client and he wants to get a literary agent, and his name is Master Sha. I had never heard of Master Sha. So I did a little research and I saw, oh, he's had some bestsellers. Send me his contract. He had a good contract with Simon & Schuster. I said, he's doing very well. I don't think he needs me. But he said, no, he wants to speak with you because you've done the Dummies series, and he wants to do a series like the 4 Dummies, and he thinks that you're the right agent. So we got on the phone, and it was about 9 o'clock my time on a Saturday or Sunday night, a Friday night, maybe, I can't remember, but the weekend. And we talked, and it was so enjoyable. It was also a lot of work because Master Sha is meticulous. He's also a very good businessman. He was asking me details about every aspect of the contract with Simon & Schuster, every aspect about the nature of publishing. And finally, I looked at my watch and I said, oh, Master Sha, it's almost midnight. I think, we should table this for another day. And then I learned it wasn't midnight. It was almost 3 in the morning. Oh. He was on the East Coast. That just shows the dedication and the energy that he has. But anyway, it was a very good call. And despite my protestations that I didn't think he really needed me, he said, no, I checked with heaven, and heaven says, you know everybody. Well, in the world of book publishing, I actually do know everybody. But as I learned later, that wasn't really what heaven was saying. Heaven was saying that because of who I am and how I'm positioned, I do know eventually everyone, if Master Sha needs someone, because we just had a recent encounter after all the success of the books and everything else, the NFT. Master Sha called me up the beginning of this year and said, well, I spoke with heaven, and heaven says, now we have to focus on the music and the concerts. Can you help me and find a good music company. And I said, Master Shah, I'm a literary agent. I'm not in the music business. And I'm so busy. We just sold the NFTs, and now we're trying to put together the art program. And I mean, give me 6 months. He said, well, okay, but I'm going to send a transmission, and we'll see what happens. So within a week, I get a phone call from my daughter. My daughter says, Dad, I have an opportunity to ghostwrite a book with this marketing expert back east, and they want to talk to you because they also might want you to publish their book. So I get on the phone and I meet this woman, Whit, and we start talking, and I like her very much. And I say, okay, we'll do the book. And then I say, well, what else do you do? He says, oh, I have a new record company, and we're focusing on, alternative types of music. And I said, oh, I have a client. You may be interested in this music. Next thing you know, I love this music. We'll be delighted to organize the concerts and to publish it. So I did not have any idea at the time I was asked that I would be able to find the right person. And I didn't know Whit at the time, but I think that's what Dr. Shah found out when he was checking. And I think that's one of the reasons his confidence gives me confidence. So when he asked me to do something that on the surface seems improbable, if not impossible, I go ahead and try, and the universe seems to present the opportunity. So, I'm just delighted with my relationship with Dr. Master Shah. When I wrote the book about him, I got to spend an entire week with him. We were in Palm Springs, of all places. And it was just, I don't know, like being with a brother. It was not, most people have a formal relationship. You're his student or you're his patient, or, there's a kind of boundary. But as an author writing a book, there was really no boundary. So we were like, we drove in my convertible down the strip, and we ate every meal together. So, I really feel there was my wife likes to say, it's like we're brothers. I mean, the energies that we have are very similar. Master Shah is sort of never stopping, always working. I'm kind of the same way. I'm always doing something, very high energy. So we when we're together, she looks at us sometimes and she just says, it's like your brothers. So, there's this wonderful relationship I have with Master Shah, and I'm very grateful. And of course, I don't have all his abilities, but, I appreciate his abilities. And I think that my job is to document and to provide a wider context. I'm not a formal student. I really, I'm very busy. I have lots of other clients, but I always make time for Master Shah, because even though I've represented the Dalai Lama, I've represented some of the most powerful spiritual leaders on the planet. I actually sincerely believe that Master Shah has more energy and more to contribute to humanity than any author I've ever represented.
So, Bill, were you a skeptic, like before meeting?
Absolutely. Yeah, with my background, my father, just to give a little background, my father was a major chemist before he became a book publisher. So if you couldn't measure something scientifically, it wasn't real. So that was my background. And I also just always skeptical. If something sounds too good to be true, usually it is too good to be true, and it's not true at all. So I was skeptical, but I did the research. I mean, I spoke with hundreds of people, and some of these people, ironically, had relationships with my own family, extended family, that I did not know about at the time I started doing the research. So it was sort of like extra confirmation, because I was able to get third-party reports that these people were totally legitimate, totally honest, their experiences were real. So, you're always going to have naysayers, and I encourage people to, if something is presented as seemingly too good to be true, be skeptical and, work it out for yourself to see if you can accept the data. And if the data is not there, go in the other direction. But with Dr. Master Shah, the data is there. And then the other thing that I always pay attention to is, who are the other people who are promoting and working with Dr. Master Shah? And we have people like Dr. Peter Udoba. And I checked Peter out, and he's the real deal. He has the credentials. He is a medical doctor. He is a research scientist. He's taught at major universities. And he's also done studies now. And the studies confirm that it is not random. It cannot be explained by the placebo effect. There's something real happening. Now, I'm mostly interested in well, what is really happening? It's all real, but how do we explain it scientifically? And this is one of the reasons that we've been doing these Tapping the Source summits. It's not just Tao science, it's science coming from other clients I have, like Dr. Ervin Laszlo, which confirms that we are living in a reality that is not complete. The reality that we accept as real is incomplete. I won't say it's unreal, but there are other dimensions. Master Sha talks about other dimensions. Other clients I have, such as Kimberly Meredith, who's done a book, Awakening to the Fifth Dimension, who's also a very effective healer, says, yes, I heal through Mother Mary and I connect through the fifth dimension. Master Sha talks about other dimensions also. So I think that we're beginning to see not just these anecdotal stories, but then from a scientific perspective, that there are other dimensions, there are other levels of reality. And somehow, if we're able to connect into those other levels of reality, what Master Sha would call the Tao, and which I, now that I host the Monday show, very comfortable calling it the Tao, the source. When I started 15 years ago, I made this film, Tapping the Source. My wife actually produced it. I co-wrote the book, Tapping the Source. And I was very intrigued because the Tapping the Source book was based on Charles Haanel's Master Key System. And Charles Haanel was also talking about tapping into the mind of the universe, tapping into what has commonly become known as the law of attraction, which is really the law of love. But when you analyze Charles Haanel's writing, it is very much aligned with Master Sha's teachings, because what is the law of love? The law of love is if you emanate love, you'll attract love. It's the vibrationary level. If you're living a life of higher purpose and service, you're obviously going to attract higher energy to you. And this is not the reason you do it, but it's an inevitable response to the energy that you're emitting. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen in that exact moment. Oh, I just did a good deed. Now I'm going to get my Ferrari. That's unfortunately sort of the image that was presented in The Secret, which is why so many people were disappointed with that film. So we corrected the errors in The Secret, but maintained the essence of the reality that there are ways of using the mind to generate positive energy, both for yourself and for humanity. So that's what Master Sha is all about. And so when I realized that, it was like just a perfect fit with what we had already been doing with Tapping the Source. And because of that, we're re-releasing Tapping the Source. We're going to do more interviews, and we're also going to have Tapping the Source summits. Some with Master Sha, he's very busy. He's not going to be on all of them. But the other people we have, you know, like John Azaroff, like, well, the ones that we've done with Deepak and Irvin and Dr. DeMartini, but we're going to go beyond that, because I also want to include some of the younger people who are just up and coming. Because if we're going to sort of have a world worth preserving, it's going to be people in the younger generations, in their 20s, their 30s, and their 40s, who really have to step up. And we have to find these new leaders to take the mantle to keep things going in a positive way. And I've just agreed just this last week to be part of a new upshift movement, global upshift, which Dr. Ervin Laszlo is kind of the inspiration for. But primarily right now, European leaders, former members of parliament in England and others. And it's all about creating a movement so that every organization that is participating in raising the awareness of people on the planet at this time can unify in ways that enhance what they're doing already. Because there's a lot of hope and good news happening. And unfortunately, major media kind of ignores that and focuses on the war in Ukraine, on the COVID, on all the things that are the financial divide, you know, that you can go on and on, all the negatives. But it's very important that we also have focus on the positives, because the more we focus on the positive, the more we're going to generate positive. And that's another recent book that Waterside's very proud to have published is the new Interfaith 21st Century edition of The Power of Positive Thinking, originally by Norman Vincent Peale, because we feel books like these are really going to make a big difference. If we can get everyone just moving a little bit in a positive direction, it's going to have a huge, huge impact on the nature of life on this planet in the coming decades and centuries.
So, Bill, what would you suggest for ordinary folks that doesn't have a spiritual life or are not
Well,
into spirituality?
you don't need to be in spirituality at all. This is science. This is not about being spiritual. This is about being practical. The most practical thing you can do is to be kind. It may not sound practical, but it is. The kinder you are, the more you will receive. Just be kind. I mean, it really is as simple as what our mothers teach us. Share, be kind, don't be greedy. These really basic concepts. And it's not, you don't have to be spiritual. It's not about spirituality. It's about being practical. And I know in my own life, I've had all these great things happen to me, and it's mostly when I'm focusing on helping others. When we did Tapping the Source as a film, we interviewed over 100 celebrities, Mariel Hemingway from the world of acting, Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen as best-selling authors, Michael Beckwith, who heads Agape, but then also billionaires like Sherry Arison, John Kilcullen, who ran IDG Books for the Dummy series. I mean, people that really have their feet on the ground, other real estate mavens. And what was interesting is across the board, and none of these people were interviewed together. They were completely separate interviews. They all came up with 2, 3 fundamental precepts. And this is across all professions, all religions. The first was, because the question I asked them is, what is your source of happiness and how do you maintain your connection? That's tapping the source. And the answer in almost every case was, the most important thing is finding a way to express gratitude. The second most important thing was finding a way to be of service to others. And the third most important was either through meditation or direct contact with nature, maintaining an energetic centering, because either of those will allow you to remain centered, because whether you're in nature or you're meditating, you're blocking out, at least for a short period of time, all the noise from the media and from all the distraction and all the negativity that unfortunately seems to keep the world spinning. So those were the 3 things. Those are not spiritual practices. You do not need to know who Dr. Shah is. You do not need to follow any guru. You do not need to follow any religion. At the same time, if you are a scientist, and my own mother was an agnostic, she was never certain there really was a God, you should read some of the books that have motivated religious followers. Books like, I'm not sure what the Vedas, I think they're called, the ancient books of India.
Yeah, Vedic.
The Vedas are fantastic information, the insights and the stories, and the Bible and the Quran, all of these books. Why have they preserved, endured? Well, you don't have to believe in the religious part of it to see often the wisdom when they have an explanation, when they give a story of someone who has overcome challenges. The stories, just read it for the stories, and you don't necessarily have to accept that it's exactly the way it's described. One of the things I caution people, because I do think extremism and fundamentalism are worrisome, because people who sort of think that the word of God was written exactly in this way and this way only, well, it was written by a human being. Human beings are fallible. And, it doesn't mean that the overall, Bible or the Quran or any of these books that millions, maybe billions of people follow is less than holy. But,
there's always biases, isn't there?
There's biases, there's interpretation, and things evolve. The world of 2,000 years ago was very different from the world of today. And so,
yes, but we can take the wisdom, though, can't we?
We can take the wisdom from it. I mean, that's why I love Lao Tzu. He was writing 2,500 years ago, and the wisdom of what he was writing is timeless. The wisdom is timeless. But when you get into some of these practices, well, it was different times, and in some of these religions, the role of women was much different. We don't have to necessarily accept that. But, if you do, as long as you don't bother other people, go with it, whatever works for you. But I think that we need to be tolerant of other beliefs. We need to realize that it's not about any one religion. It's about connecting to the source.
Yes.
Now, I think one of the things Master Sha says, which I think is very important, is when he's talking about the Tao, he's not talking about, quote, the religion Taoism. You don't have to believe in a specific religious practice, but whether you call it the Tao or the source, science is indicating there had to be something before the Big Bang. The explanations that we have are temporal explanations. And the evidence seems to indicate that the concept of the Tao is scientifically defensible. And what is the concept of the Tao? The concept of the Tao is that Tao has always been. It predates the Big Bang. It predates time. How can it predate time? Well, time is a dimension that has been created for us to experience life. But there really is no time. There's only time in the lifetime that we live it. Because as soon as we leave our bodies, and we will leave our bodies, this is, Master Sha is teaching immortality. I would say even immortality is immortality in certain dimensions to a certain level. I mean, you could be immortal for 1 billion years, but even that is going to end because we know this planet is going to disappear. The sun's going to disappear. None of this is eternal. And there's a big difference between 1 trillion years and eternal. Yeah. So no matter what your belief system, if you're dedicated as a scientist, what do you think? Everything just sprung up and then it's all going to disappear and it has no point and no meaning? If you choose to believe that, I kind of have sympathy for you because it's a very sort of dark view of the nature of reality. I prefer to believe that there is nothingness, the emptiness world, but within the emptiness world, there is infinite potential and it is eternal. And whatever happens will be recreated and recreated, and there is no end. And so as consciousness, everything will continue, just transformed into different forms and different worlds and different universes. Yeah. I had a near-death experience when I was just 15 years old, and I experienced that dropping the body is just, an experience. It's not the end of consciousness, because I was, in some ways, and that's what the Tapping the Source movie was inspired by, in some ways, I was in a more blissful state when I was clinically dead for a few minutes and on my way. I'm not sure where I was headed, to tell you the truth, but I had no pain. I had no anxiety, no concerns. Yeah. You can read about it. I wrote a fictional version of it in my novel, The 12, and highly recommend it because it's such a surprising reaction that I had to the experience of being dead. And so I'm in no hurry to leave this planet. I think there's a lot of work to be done. I think there's a lot of joy being in the body, but at the same time, there's a lot of joy on the other side when you get there. You don't need to hurry to get there, but it's not bad.
So what do you enjoy about Master Sha's teachings?
Oh, well, I enjoy his energy above everything. He's so enthusiastic. It's like being with a 6-year-old, but a very wise 6-year-old. But as he said, like I was just listening yesterday, he says, oh, we're going to do Tao quantum healing for 2 hours. Well, 5 hours later, it's like, I can't stop myself. He can't. He gets into this energy, and it's both wise and childish at the same time. And it's really the joy, the child side of it, which, is not something that, he possibly is even aware of because he's just being himself. But that's actually the side that I find most joyful. And the wisdom is, obviously the reason you come and all that you can learn. But for me, it's really just about the energy of it. I mean, I have, because I do the classes for the Tao, become, not the level of Master Sha, but relative to 99% of the planet, I have a pretty good understanding now of the Tao and the principles of the Tao. And the wisdom is fantastic. And I just keep telling people, go back and read the first chapter, listen to the recording. Tao creation, Tao reverse creation. Everything is in that chapter. But despite the wisdom, I think the energetic experience, even if I'm busy sort of doing something else, if it's going on in the background, just the energy of Master Sha's teaching and his dedication gives me joy.
Yes. And how has he transformed you, like on your journey, William?
Well, I'm less skeptical. You know? I let down my guard a little bit because of my experiences. So I think there's probably more magic and more openness to miracles. I've always actually been a little bit open to miracles. When I was very young, I was 21 or 22, I went around the world for Rod Serling making the film In Search of Ancient Mysteries. And half the things, because I was following the book of von Däniken about ancient astronauts, and unfortunately, half the things mentioned in the book didn't really exist. He made up or exaggerated a lot of things. So while I was, you know, in charge of the whole thing, I was the advanced person, and I was making all the decisions, where we would go, what we would film. It was a lot of responsibility. It was their money, though, not mine. So, you know, it wasn't that stressful. But at some point when things became clear that von Däniken was not really that accurate, I literally looked up at the heavens and I said, I'm on a mission from God. You just direct me to what I need to do. And from that moment on, I've really been living my life that way. I used to go to Comdex, the big electronics and computer shows in Las Vegas. And this was at the time that computers were booming, and our business at that time was mostly about computer books. And, you know, I would have these meetings with these big companies, and sometimes I would show up and, you know, it was a mass place, and you could get lost and people wouldn't show up on time. And instead of saying, oh, I've wasted my time coming here, I would just look around and say, well, what's here? And I would find, in some cases, a company that was better fit for what I wanted to do than the company I thought I was supposed to be meeting with. So I've really led my life very much allowing for synchronicity, being open to the abundance of the universe. My personal belief, and I think this has always been part of my belief, but I think working with Master Sha has increased it, is the world for me in general is a place of unlimited abundance and unlimited love. And if you open yourself to that, your life immediately is smoother and easier. Doesn't mean you're not going to have challenges. We're human beings. We're meant to have challenges. The other thing that I've learned from Master Sha and Lao Tzu together is to be more accepting of the challenges. Because sometimes when you're suffering, it's not pleasurable, but there may be a lesson that is actually for your higher good. And it may be that the very things that you most dread are the greatest gifts. So that perspective allows you to move through things a little less painfully and with greater hope for the future.
Mm-hmm. And also, Master Sha emphasizes Tao calligraphy. I can see you have a Tao calligraphy.
Well, I've just been gifted, in addition to the major calligraphy, my wife and I were gifted as ambassadors, this beautiful, I don't know if you can see it as well, but we now have that calligraphy also. So yes, I use the calligraphies. Both my wife and I did come down with COVID last Christmas, just before Christmas, and Master Sha sent us calligraphies. And I mean, my wife in particular, I was very worried because she had previously had double pneumonia. And, you know, as someone who's had double pneumonia, COVID is a killer. So, you know, we were very grateful and used the calligraphies, and very confident that the calligraphies and the prayers, it wasn't just the calligraphy. Master Sha also did a special transmission, I think, during an event. And so we're very grateful to all of Master Sha's teachers for the positive energy they sent. But the calligraphies definitely are powerful. The energy of the calligraphies is amazing. It wasn't really until last year that I began tracing. I'm so busy, and I just have the calligraphy, it's great. And I think it has been helpful. But if you also trace, as David Meltzer has traced, he was one of my clients and started tracing, and he had so much limited abundance when he started tracing. So the combination, the calligraphy alone, great. If you combine it with tracing, even greater.
Okay, great.
I just
Um,
share the one thing that Bill shared earlier was everything comes to our life if we accept it, even though sometimes it's pain, we could learn something from it. And if we accept it, the faster we accept it, the easier our life will become. And because we have accepted it, and that would smooth it out, and a lesson can be learned from it. That is beyond amazing.
And that's straight from Lao Tzu. The storms will pass just as the sunshine passes. Everything is constantly changing. So nothing is intended to last forever. And that goes for the bad as well as the good. So when you're, and you know, it's sad in some ways. I mean, being a human being is, you know, as Master Shah says, you're born, you get old, you get sick, you die. If you live 100 years, it's considered, hey, you had a good life. So there's something about that equation that kind of makes me sad to think about, because I have grandchildren and they're 5 and they're 8. And I know they're not going to have perfect pain-free lives. And I wish, you know, I love them so much. I just wish every moment that they exist would be perfect, but that's not realistic. It's never going to be that way. It can be as little as they're going to stub a toe, but no one gets out of here without some pain. And I think that we have to accept that as part of the human condition, and we have to have compassion for ourselves and others. But I think what Master Sha is contributing to the world is so powerful and so positive and so needed right now. So that's why, you know, I write books like The Miracle Soul Healer and go on shows to promote them, because I really think if we can get 100 million people reading books, listening to music, Tao music, doing these activities, we're going to raise the level of consciousness. And that really is the only hope for mankind as I see it. It's great. Yes, let's go out and create fusion. I think they were talking about that last night on the news. 30 years from now, we may have energy replacement that's totally green and we'll save ourselves from this climate. Hopefully they'll do all that in time and pursue all that. But even those doing that, if they do it with the positive energy and the positive connection to the source, they'll do it better and faster. And even if we don't make it with that specific application, we're more open to receiving knowledge from the source. This is what Charles Hannell said, not just Master Sha. And Charles Hannell is regarded as the founder of the human development movement. There is the universal mind for him. There is the Tao. The Tao contains all information, because there is no time. We experience time, but all the information, including future inventions, are available to us. When you look at the great inventors, Tesla, Einstein, they were tapping into something that was beyond human. They were tapping into the source. Call it the Tao, call it the source, call it whatever you want. But there are ways of developing your discipline so that you have greater opportunities of fortunate accidents. And those fortunate accidents really can be the breakthrough moments that can save your personal life, but more importantly, really save life for all humanity. Because we have no way of predicting. It could be a small child in India or Africa with very limited education opportunity right now. That could be someone who in the future is going to come up with the solutions that are going to help everyone on this planet. It's not just, I mean, I am one of the quote privileged. I went to Harvard, I went to Yale, my father was successful, I make plenty of money. We can contribute, but it's not limited to those of privilege to be the ones that are going to make the biggest contributions. So, you know, I just encourage everyone, keep your hope for the future, keep positive, be kind, be generous, and be open to receiving abundance in every moment.
Very wise words, William. Really, really grateful for that. Any final words for our audience that will be watching the replay?
You just go out and buy all these books. The books are good. That we're in publishing because we really do think books can make a positive contribution. So whether it's Miracle Soul Healer and learn more about Dr. Sha, Tapping the Source. There's also a website where we're now reissuing the film, Tapping the Source, The Power of Positive Thinking, 21st Century Interfaith Edition. all these books. Just go to the Waterside website. We're publishing over 50 books a year. We have all of Master Shah's new books and the books that are going to be published next year. Just read and share. Share the books. You can share video, of course, but something special to me about books. So whether, I'm not much of the ebook readers, all our books are, on Kindle and you can get the ebook. But for me, I think just having a book, you can read it in your bedroom, you can read it in your living room, you can take it to the beach. Books are great ways of sharing your enthusiasm and your new knowledge. So I just encourage people, read a book, read about Master Shah, and then share the book. It's great. It's holiday time. Buy 10 copies of Miracle Soul Healer and give one to your 10 closest friends, and they'll be very grateful.
Oh, by the way, there's a calligraphy on this book.
That's the other thing. In addition to everything else, it's a healing tool. Just having the calligraphy is more than worth the price of admission just for the book. So it's a super bonus. And we talked about it. This is the original calligraphy that Master Shah created when he was just starting his life as a calligrapher. So it's a very powerful calligraphy, and Master Shah has added additional energy to this calligraphy.
Great. Thank you so much, Bill. I mean, I bought the hardcover because of the calligraphy.
Yes, it's available hardcover or paperback. The best way is Amazon. Because of all the supply chain issues, we didn't even bother putting it in bookstores, but bookstores can special order it too. And next year, when we don't have such supply chain issues, we'll get the books into the bookstores.
Oh, it's so lovely for you to share with us all the wisdom and all the experiences that you've on your journey.
It's my pleasure. Henderson's one of my favorite human beings on the planet. He's always so kind and generous and positive and hardworking. And I remember just last year at this time, out of nowhere, we call up and say, "You've got to go to Miami." He says, no, I have plans for the holiday. I can't go to Miami. But he changed his plans. He went to Miami. That was the last time we were together physically. And it was joyful to spend time with him, as it always is. So I thank both of you for the work you're doing and encourage you to just keep doing what you're doing and have a wonderful holiday season.
Happy holidays to you too, Bill.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you for being here.
You're very
welcome. And to all viewers watching the replay, if you have any questions for Bill, for us, please leave them in the chat and we'll get back to you. And Henderson, do you have any last words as well?
As I said, I'm very grateful that Bill joined us today. And this is the most amazing service. So everyone, watch over and over again. Listen to what Bill said, because all these tidbits are crucial and important to our lives. So I thank you, each and every one of you, for coming to attend, to become healthy, wealthy, worthy, and wise, right?
Yeah.
And thank you again, Bill. Thank you, Tracy.
And let's give William a big hand.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We love you, and we'll see you soon. I will see you tomorrow morning for meditation at 7 a.m. UK time. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.